Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Kato and I'm so happy you're joining me again today on the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel. Today I am sharing some of the newest release from Crafty Meraki and I'm making two cards today. You already saw the first one, but I'm making another one in completely different colors and it's going to be a very different vibe as well. So it's super fun. Now I'm using the Always in My Heart stamp set, which is new in the April release by Crafty Meraki, and I'm starting out by stamping one of the sentiments in Versamark Ink onto watercolor cardstock. All of the products I am using will be listed in the top left corner while the video is running, but you can also find them in the description afterwards. Now I am going to emboss this with Wow Metallic Copper embossing powder because I'm going to make a very pink card for the first one. And I planned on this being the only card I made, but then once it was finished, I thought this would look really cool in those hippie colors, those flower power colors. So I figured I'd make another one. But if I were to make, if I had planned on making two cards at once or even multiples, I would have done all of the stamping at once, all of the embossing at once. So I didn't do that. It wasn't quite as efficient as I would have liked, but it worked out in the end. Now I took 3 small individual flower stamps from the Always in My Heart stamp set that I showed at the start of this video. I placed them in a weird formation on my acrylic block and we're just stamping them all the way around this card in Versamark ink. Now this panel I'm stamping on is a little bit larger than A2 size because I'm going to do watercolor. And I am going to cover the entire panel in water. So it's going to be a very wet technique, and that means I am going to tape this panel down. So it's not going to buckle as much. It's not going to warp as much once it's taped down. That's why I chose a larger size. Now for this first panel, I actually got the sizing wrong. So I couldn't make the entire front of a card this panel anyway, this watercolored panel anyway, but I'm very happy I did that because I really liked the look of the matting layer that I chose in the end. I'm going to use the same embossing powder and I'm just going to sprinkle it all the way around to reveal all of those flowers. I really like this doodle style of flowers. It's a really playful style, a playful look, and I love that for this card. Now the stamp set also contains a giant wreath image, which is also really fun, but I really like individual stamps and I love that Crafty Meraki included both, so you can get very different looks with one stamp set. I'm heat setting all of this and then I can move on to watercoloring. Now I tape this panel down onto a separate work surface, so it's just a wooden plank. It's nothing fancy. It's actually really annoying to work with. It's a very weird size. I should cut it down, but anything wood is probably your best bet because I'm going to heat set this watercolor or speed up the heating process, speed up the drying process with my heat tool. And I don't want to use my heat tool on anything that's taped down to my cutting mat because a cutting mat essentially is plastic and it's going to warp, and cutting mats are usually quite expensive, so I don't want that. I just used a wooden board to tape this down to, and then I'm not going to have any of those issues. So I first wet the entire panel just with a spray bottle and some more water and a paintbrush to get an even coating of water. And then I dropped a couple of colors of paint in there. It is very faint, but a lot more noticeable in real life. And the fun thing is I used some metallic watercolors with some glitter in it before this, and I didn't clean my water cup. So there was still glitter in my water, and the entire panel is shimmery. You can do this on purpose. Mine was a little bit accidental, but you can do this on purpose by just mixing in some shimmer medium in your water before you start painting. You can use Perfect Pearls for that, or there's even, I'll try to find it and link it in the description, but there's mediums for watercolor that have some sparkles in there. I have one from Winsor & Newton. I'll try to find it online so you can see that as well, and that's really fun too. Now I was completely done with that first panel, and then I just did the same things. I stamped the sentiment, embossed that. I just used black Versamark ink, Versafine Onyx black ink, and then I embossed it with Wow clear gloss embossing powder. And I'm doing the same thing. I just used some pink, some blue, some yellow in the background. Again, very faint because it was all water. And then the one thing that I did differently for this panel is I heat set the background, or yeah, I covered the entire panel with the faint paint first. I heat set that, made sure it was completely dry before painting the colors. And for the first panel, I just painted the flowers while everything else was still wet. I used some very bright rainbow colors for this. They're almost neon. I'm using the Mijello Mission Gold paint set, by the way. They have some very vibrant colors in there, and that's why I love them, especially for this card. So if you're looking for watercolors, I can't recommend these enough. I'm just using I think a size 4 brush, so it's not too small. It's not too big either. It's just really fun to work with. It's a really comfortable size for me. I use this almost too much, also for very fine details that could probably use a smaller brush. For the flower centers, I did the same thing as I did for the pink card. I just filled them in with brown. I think that's a very neutral color for a flower center. Now, to finish these cards, I just cut an A2 size panel out of colored cardstock for each of these cards. And I'm using some liquid glue to adhere these down onto my card bases. These are top folding white note cards. Yeah, and that's it. It's really easy to make these cards. I did die cut the panels of watercolor cardstock, so they're a little bit smaller than A2 size, and you can see the colored cardstock poking out around the edges. I'm using the yellow one for the hippie colorway, the rainbow colorway, and I'm actually propping those die cut watercolor panels up onto some cardboard. So they'll be very sturdy but very dimensional as well. And these are die cut with the double stitched rectangles by My Favorite Things, and I love that. It's not as subtle as most stitched detail dies, and I really love it. It's a really great way to frame a panel, just some stitched detail around the edges. Before I used die cutting, I used to just put a dash line with some fine liners around the edges of my panel to frame it. And if you don't have that many nesting dies, you can absolutely do that as well. Now you could go wild with embellishments for these. Clear sequins would look really good on the rainbow panel, and you could use some rose gold pearls or something on the rose panel. But I just think it looked really playful and fun without any embellishments, so I left them without. I used some pattern paper to fold matching envelopes, and I used the We Are Memory Keepers 123 punch board for that. I will also leave a link in the description to a video I made a while ago where I make matching envelopes and where I talk about making matching envelopes and some design ideas for those. These are the finished cards. I love the sparkle and the shine on this rose gold panel. It's super classy, but still playful because of the doodle style of the flowers. And then this one is just really fun. I love the bright yellow for this rainbow card. And I really love the background as well. You can see it a little bit better in these pictures. It's very faint, but you can see it a lot better in real life. Now, to celebrate this release, we also have an Instagram hop going on. You can still enter there for a chance to win a $25 gift card to the Crafty Meraki store. You can leave comments along the way, and each comment is an entry to win that gift card. So I'll link that Instagram hop below, and I hope you check it out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this new Crafty Meraki release, and I hope to see you next time.